Okay, I wanted to get down in a little bit closer to what we're doing, so maybe you can see a little bit better of what I was talking about with these screws. We've got the holes that hold the top of the fender to the tub of the cargo area. And right here, that is the screw. And I can almost hold it, well, I can hold it above it and drop it back in the hole, and it goes back in. And so that was the point that I was making with these things are not holding anything. They're not touching, they're not biting, they're not grabbing, they're nothing. And you can see, I mean, I can pull the whole fender loose and the screw is all the way in there. Hey everyone, welcome back to Yellow Jacket Garage. As you can see, we have the Salvage Title C5 up on the quick jack. Basically what that is we're going to go ahead and dive into taking this fender off and see if we can fix what ails us underneath there. So we'll have to remove this tire, remove the inner fender liner right here, unplug this light that's here, then we'll have to come around, remove this tail light so that we can get to the screws that are inside here, and then remove these top screws, the screws inside the door here, and the fender should hopefully come off. Now there's some body work that was done here, and so I'm not sure if they used some type of adhesive or something else in there. We'll find that out here shortly, hopefully. Should prove to be interesting. I'm expecting a mess right in here. I'm expecting it. I hope I'm wrong, but I won't be surprised if I find that in there. So all we have left is to dive in and see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and pull this wheel off. I've got my 3/4 socket. Okay, really pretty easy. Pull that wheel off, get it out of the way over here without running over this other camera. All right. Now remember, we did on this car, we replaced the shocks and whatnot. Now, yeah, as I suspected, it's missing maybe most of these connectors, and oh my goodness. All right, it wasn't, sorry I had to turn the fan back on, it's a little bit toasty in here. Wasn't as bad as I thought. This one is a rivet and it does go into the fender, so I'm gonna have to drill that one out. However, I thought it was riveted to the bottom of the tub, but it is not. They just used a, I don't know, a piece of plastic or something. There was probably another piece of broken plastic, really as a plug to cover up that, instead of replacing this fender liner, which they probably should have done, but I'm not gonna hold them to task too much on that one. That's really a pretty I don't know, kind of ingenious, I guess, fix, but it's still one of those things. So all right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and drill that rivet out, pull the fender liner out, and that should be that. Relatively easy. And then I'll see if there's something that I can do, maybe a tab or something that I can put, or a clip or something, to refasten that one with actually not something that's quite as permanent. So whoever gets this car next, you're welcome. All right, we've got the inner fender liner out. We saw a little bit more damage and stuff, and so we're going to move on from that. I don't want to dwell on it a whole lot. Again, I apologize for the background noise from the fan, but it's a little bit warm in here and I kind of need it, so I'm going to have to ask that you bear with me on that one. So what we're going to do next is go around back. We're going to go ahead and pull that taillight lens out, and then pull those screws out, and then pull those side screws out, and see if we can't yank this fender off of here. All right, it's time to pull this taillight out. I've got the Torx 15-bit in my impact. I don't need that much power to pull it out. It's just using it as really a powered screwdriver. I wouldn't suggest putting it back in with that, and I won't. I'll use my little hand, the deal that holds that socket in it, and do it by hand. But getting it out for there was really pretty easy. Use the screw, put it in that little opening, because my fingers don't quite go in there very well. But anyway, that's it. You don't need to pull the light all the way off. You can just leave it hanging. And then I'm going to look in here and see if I can't see where these other screws attach. If they're really are screws, we'll find out. Alrighty, we've got the light. I'm going to look down in here. Now that one doesn't have a screw in it, so that kind of makes sense there, which means maybe that's some way that we can do a little bit of adjustment. No screw, no screw, and the bottom two have screws on them. And before I actually dig up in here and start looking around, I'm going to grab a stick, clean some spider webs and stuff out of there, because I don't really want to get bit by a bad spider, and it looks like there's some weird looking webs up in there. So anyway, all right, take a break. All right, I've got the work light in here, so you can see way down there at the bottom, there's that, let me get my finger out there, kind of pointing at it. Right there is the, there's a 10mm socket stuck on that bolt. There's that one bolt above it, and then you come up to here. Let me see if I can get my finger in there where you can actually see it. There's supposed to be a bolt there, and then you notice how these two pieces here separate right there, and it's kind of a tight spot, so it's kind of hard to see, but this should all be connected, attached, all that fun stuff. There are holes, everything should be there, but it's not. So we'll try. I'll see if I have some fasteners that we can use. It's not going to be perfect because it's not going to be the factory stuff, but it's going to be better than what it was. So I just wanted to take a second to kind of dig in there a little bit so you could see what was going on. I'm going to go ahead and pull the fender and everything apart from the inside there, and then when we do the top part and the front part, I'll try to video that. All right, we got the rear, the bumper cover is loose away from the back of the fender, so that part's good. I think I'm going to pull the screws from in front of the door panel, and then there's that one up top that should be the last one there. So let me reposition the camera and we will pull those screws out. Okay, I'm going to pull these screws here, and then I've got this top one up here, and the fender should be at that point free. So let's go and pull those out. The downside is I'm kind of having my back to the camera, the back of my head, and I hope it's not too terrible. Wow. Not quite sure what that was, but I'm guessing that we'll find out here real quick when we get this fender out of the way. Hey, that screw was into something. I really hope we're not opening up a can of worms here, but those are like I don't know, drywall screws maybe. Whatever. I'm so over it. Just kidding. Well, there we go for that. I cannot wait to see what's behind this panel. And now, oh wait a minute, let me pull these two back here. You remember these ones, the wood screws that are starting, that started this whole thing. And then all right, the whole fender's loose. Let me reposition the camera because this should be interesting. Interesting. Word of the day, kids. Interesting. All right, here we go. I'll put that light through there. The whole fender. Whoa, check that out. Wow. At least they used a new fender panel. Only problem is we chipped some paint off there, so we'll have to be careful we don't, I don't know. I really don't know what to do as far as that goes. I'm gonna go ahead and set this fender panel right up here. you gotta see this. Let me see. Make sure you can see it's right there. That's a moldy cricket. And these are wedges. Wedges. Wood wedges. Wood wedges. This part of the tub is basically shattered. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, being able to see it a little bit better. So this is what we did. I'm gonna go ahead and, dang, check that dude out. That's crazy. Don't eat that, kids. Okay. This is kind of like the shoulder, the outer fender. This is underneath the fender itself, and so this is some of the tub structure. And I'll do this because that's the hatch is open. You can see the stuff that's in there, whatnot. But that's where your cargo and everything goes. And so that's the stuff that you want to keep separated from the weather, right? The weather. And so let me see if we can see that. You can see that light moving around in there? Yeah, that's right. That is not sealed. Not sealed up. I suspect it has something to do with a little bit of frame damage that's down below, but at least they could have put some seam sealer in there and clamped it or something. I don't know what they could have done, but they could have done better than that, in my opinion. The problem is now it leaves me to have to fix what they did up here with, they tried to do it with Bondo or body filler. I won't use Bondo's name in vain. And then up here where that drain isn't draining. So interesting. Very, very, very interesting. All right, so here's what I'm thinking the plan is. All these screws that are in here, I've already taken a couple of them out along here, but I'm going to take these out. And that's got something in it, but I can't get to it. Oh, I guess I can. That was a rivet. I don't know what that's about, but okay. Here's my plan. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I think it's what I'm going to do. There's a little bit of a gap right here in the seam that goes all the way through no matter what. So I think what I'm going to do with that is probably blow it out with some compressed air or something, and then hit it with some Now I'm going to put some silicone in there because what I think is that gasket that's in there is broken right there. A piece of it came out. And so I want to seal that up because this goes directly through to the inside of the car. This is kind of the whole top cap for the tub. The bottom of the tub here is all broken and kind of jacked up, but I mean, they did do some work to try to clean it up. And so I'm going to seal that up. And then I'm going to take some of these vice grip welding clamps and I am going to clamp them along here like so. And then I'm going to put more screws in here than there were before in fresh locations. But again, it's going to have a few more clamps on it. I just want to be careful that I don't crack anything while I'm doing it. I just want to try to get it as tight down as I can to help the screws set themselves in there. And using these clamps, I think, was kind of about the best that I could come up with. Problem is, like this one, this part of the tub right here is really in bad shape. It's kind of broken up right here. So it's really, I mean, you can see the, let me look and check you can see the globs of fiberglass and everything else that's up here. This glob of fiberglass here kind of holds water in there, and so I'm probably going to take and trim that a little bit so that we can get the water to flow out of there a little bit better, because it does have a little bit of a lip on it, and you can see where it has been holding stuff in. And yeah, that was a screw. And so basically from there, that's what I'm going to try to do, is just get it to hold together as good as I can. And then we'll work on this top part up here to figure that one out. But yeah, it's turning into a little bit more work than what I thought it would. But hey, it's going to a good place, and it's worth it, what we're doing to it. So anyway, let me do a couple more things to check on a few more things, and we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. All right, what I did, it may not be the best thing to do, but because there were some tears in the seal, I went ahead and put in some silicone sealer. And so what I actually used was a fish tank sealer, so that should keep everything out. And then my goal behind that was to just make sure we seal it from carbon monoxide intrusion into the cabin of the car, which I'm sure that's probably not the only place we'd have to worry about it, but that's the place that I can see right now, so that's what's getting it. And so what we're going to do now is actually take a couple of these self-tapping screws and stick them back through. And that should tighten that down. Let's see if we can see how that worked. Oh yeah, I think that actually worked out pretty well. And that's my goal, is to just get it sealed up, get it as right as we can get it, and you know, we're just trying to make it as safe as we can. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. We don't want to refund it a whole bunch. We just want to get it to close and to tighten down. Okay, well that one didn't tighten down, so let's take that one back out. We'll just that one tightened down, so we'll call that one pretty good. I'm gonna I'm gonna put one in here. If I can. Just to kind of hold that stuff together. It's really in pretty bad shape. Now's the fun one. This stuff's in pretty sad shape back underneath here. I wonder if that one, I'm going to put that screw back in there. I know it's an old screw, but oh, it's not holding anything at all, so maybe we can go to the edge of it over here. I think we'll leave that right there. Okay, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to take some of these screws, but I put a bigger washer on it, and the idea is spread that washer out a little bit and maybe it'll hold a little bit of that material. See how that's kind of really not in good shape? I'm going to leave that right like so. We'll add another one. Somebody will probably come along at some point behind me and go, I don't know what that guy was thinking. Well, I'm gonna leave that right there too. This fiberglass tub side of it is in really bad shape. Ah, come on. Trying to do this without tearing up that fiberglass. What I probably should do is see if I can clean it up and come back over it. Wow. Well, I think that's probably about as good as that's going to get, to be totally honest. Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that, I think. Probably grab a pair of clippers or something, and I may just leave those as long as they are. The chances of this thing coming apart again is probably pretty slim, so we'll leave it as is. I'm glad I got extras of those screws because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need them. Still trying to figure out what to do up on top up here. That's it's going to be something. What I may wind up doing is just glassing over those because I can't get to the back side of it to fill it with anything. And I think that's about what we get. And I am not going to rivet the thing on there. I'm just not going to do that. So, all right, we'll let this dry up a little bit and figure out what the next plan of attack is. All right, I took a rat tail file and I cleaned this area here up, and only for the reason I did that was because it was kind of globbed up and water had been sitting up in here, and so I did that for drainage, so hopefully the water will clear out of there and kind of go down this way. But that's what I did there, and that is why. So other than that, the only thing that we have left to really worry about is going to be on the top up here, and I'm about the point that with these holes that are up here is that I think I'm probably going to just fill those in and maybe just do a quick drill through and add some of the other screws that I got, not through but kind of beside. I think for up in here, as thick as this looks, I may need some more screws though, or need longer screws, but I'm going to use something that's more appropriate. Probably not exactly right, but it's going to be better than drywall screws, because who doesn't want drywall screws? I mean, it's a one-of-a-kind car now. Okay, so here's what my thought is on this thing. Where the holes are, I'm going to try one and kind of see how it works out. I'll show you here, there's another crack in the tub that I didn't notice before. And really what happened when the accident happened, this whole piece of it shifted up, and when they put it back together, the fender sat too high, so they took a grinder and ground off, I think, unless the fender was moving around enough that it rubbed that down. And so anyway, I'm gonna sand this down, mix up some 2-part epoxy, probably stuff a little bit of fiberglass cloth in there, and try to kind of make it at least something that the screws can bite into and hold the fender in place so it doesn't move around. Because if that was from the fender moving around, then that's a problem, because that's a lot of rubbing. I kind of think it isn't. I kind of think they sanded it off and just to get the fender to sit, but the whole back part is still loose, and so that's kind of what I'm going to try to do, is get this to kind of set up a little bit better again, and maybe stiffen up the whole back of the car a little bit the way it should be. So be a fun process. Be interesting to see if any of this works. If none of it works, we'll find out. But never done anything like this, so wish us luck. Okay, what I've got here, I've got a piece of fiberglass mat. I've already gone ahead and sanded off to kind of clean that up a little bit. I'm not sure how well it's, I think I need to, don't breathe that stuff in, kids. And so what I want to do is I'm going to try to create a little bit of a plug, and then take the epoxy, mix it up, kind of put it down in there, or I might even put it on the cloth itself, and then kind of push it down in there. And my idea is that once the epoxy hardens up, it'll create almost like a rivet, the way a rivet goes through a panel, and it kind of spreads out. And so it'll spread out, but it'll also create a solid point that when I put the screws in to hold the fender on here, that that'll be a good point that it'll fit. I mean, worst thing that happens is it doesn't work, and we have to try something else. And so, but that's my thought, and I think it might work. So let's go ahead and mix up some of this epoxy we got here and see what happens. I'm going to leave the camera running. I'm just going to do it. Okay, with epoxy we use the equal amounts, basically equal amounts of part A and part B. And so I'm just going to, because there's a couple of other things that I want to do. I do have a fiberglass kit, so I can use, if I wanted to, I can use the fiberglass as well. But I want to try it with this. This stuff is kind of messy, so. Whew. That's the part B. That stuff stinks. That's the smelly part. I'm going to use just a Bondo spreader to mix it up. And once this stuff mixes up, you don't have a whole lot of working time, so you kind of got to be pretty quick with it. And like I said, it might work, it might not. It's kind of one of those things that it's a garage expedient deal. So let's see how it works. I'm going to drop the fabric in there, and what I'm trying to do is coat it as much as I can, which that seems like it worked. It pulled some of the fibers off, but that's okay. And so I have almost like a postage stamp. Let me move that out of the way. And I'm going to lay that on there and poke it in the hole a little bit. Let me go grab a stick that I can use to poke down in there. Alright, the fastest thing I found was a zip tie, so let's try a zip tie. We'll just kind of tuck it in there and fold it over. And I am going to have to sand this off once it sets. I know that for a fact, just to make it level again. But, don't throw that down in there. Should be pretty good. And that is starting to set up already. I might be making a little bit of a mess, a little bit more of a mess than I need to, but this will all be underneath the fender anyway, and I will clean it up. And we'll see how this works. Okay, I went ahead and got these ones done, started up on that one. I'm not going to touch it yet because I don't know how, it's not been but a couple of minutes since I put those on there. I know this stuff will dry up pretty quick, or set up pretty quick, but I don't want to mess with it too much. I did go ahead and put some of the resin up here in this crack that was here. Hopefully that'll hold it together better than it was before. But anyway, back to these, the plugs that I did. Basically, I used the epoxy, stuffed some of the material down in there that was all covered in epoxy, like you saw, and then flattened it off and laid another piece of cloth over the top of it, put some more resin on it. And so what my thought is, those two will bond together and it'll create like a wall anchor or something like that. So it'll have the bottom piece and then it'll have the flat cap on it that'll be bonded together. And it should give the screw more support to hold the fender in place. I'm not going to reef on them when I put it back on. I'm just going to put them up so they hold the fender where the fender should be. Up here, I wasn't able to get any fabric because I don't want to mess with this shelf that they created, because clearly that's the right height for the fender to be sitting back there, and so I wanted to leave that alone as much as I could. So I just went ahead and used the epoxy. Yeah, that's still tacky to the touch, but my thought is it'll harden up, fill up the hole. I can re-drill it and then gently put screws in there, and again it'll hold that a lot better than it was. I mean, heck, these screws back here were just sitting in there, so anything is going to be better than it was. So anyway, we're going to take a little while, probably let this cure for an hour at least before we mess with trying to fit the fender and all that good stuff, but I think we're probably about halfway done. Hey everyone, welcome back. It is the second day on doing the epoxy, the fiberglass part of the fender, inner fender, I guess. And what I've noticed with the footage that I've got is that it's pretty extensive, which means it's going to be a long video. Either that or I'm going to wind up cutting a bunch of stuff out of it. And I kind of don't want to cut anything out that might be valuable or might be something that somebody could use or use as an example of what not to do. But anyway, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short. I'm going to tell you that I, again, appreciate everybody that has subscribed and everybody that's watching the channel. And I'm going to ask you to look for part 2. Hopefully they'll be out about the same time, if not a day or two apart. But my goal is to kind of release them at the same time, or relatively close to the same time. So let's go ahead and move on, get that done. Again, thanks for being here. We'll see you on down the road.